You made dua again and again and again. You asked Allah with sincerity, with tears, with hope. You raised your hands in the quiet of the night when no one else was watching. And still, nothing changed. The same problem, the same pain, the same silence. And somewhere deep inside you, a question started to form. Is Allah even listening? You don't say it out loud, but you feel it. Because how many times can a heart ask and hear nothing back? How long can you wait before hope starts to crack? But what if everything you think about dua isn't wrong, just incomplete? What if the problem is not that your dua isn't being answered, but that you're expecting the answer in only one form? Listen carefully, because this might change everything. Allah hears every single dua, every whisper, every broken sentence, every moment when you didn't even know what to say, but your chest felt heavy. Allah heard that too. Not one dua was ignored, not one. Allah never ignores a sincere heart. But here is what most people never understand. Answering your dua is not the same as giving you what you asked for. Allah always responds, but not always in the form you expect. Let that sit with you, because this is where hearts break. You think, I asked and I didn't receive, so you conclude it wasn't accepted. But that's not how it works, not with Allah. The Prophet taught us something powerful. There is no Muslim who makes a dua except that Allah responds in one of three ways. Either He gives him what he asked for, or He saves it for him in the hereafter, or He protects him from an equivalent harm. Think about that. Your dua is never wasted, never ignored, never forgotten. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. Sometimes He gives you exactly what you asked for. Sometimes He gives you something better. And sometimes He withholds it completely, not because He doesn't care, but because He cares more than you understand. What you didn't receive might be what saved you. You think your dua was ignored, but it was actually protected. Imagine a child, sick, weak, in pain. He looks at the doctor and says, "Give me this medicine." But the child doesn't know that medicine might harm him. It might make things worse. So the doctor refuses, not out of neglect, but out of care. Now think about your life. How many things have you asked for without knowing what they would actually do to you? How many times did you say, "Ya Allah, give me this," without seeing the outcome? You see the moment. Allah sees the future. You see desire. Allah sees consequence. You see what you want. Allah sees what will break you. So when something doesn't happen the way you wanted, don't rush to call it rejection, because what you didn't receive might be what saved you. You ask, but you don't control how Allah answers. And this is where most people misunderstand everything. The greatest comfort of dua is not just what you receive, it is knowing you are not speaking into silence. There is a Lord who hears you, who sees you, who responds to you in ways you cannot always see. And sometimes the answer you're waiting for is not meant for this life at all. Not delayed, but reserved, saved, prepared for a moment far greater, a reward that does not fade, a response that does not end. And one day, you will see them. Every dua, every tear,
Every night you raised your hands and thought nothing happened, and you will wish that more of them were saved, because what Allah stored for you was better, far better. So don't measure your dua only by what you receive now, because some of your greatest answers are waiting in a place where nothing is lost. And here is where everything shifts. Sometimes the hardship itself is what brings you back to dua. Sometimes the delay is not rejection, it is preparation. Because what you are asking for might not be wrong, but you might not be ready. Not yet. You are asking for something big, something that could change your life, but your heart, your mindset, your strength might still be growing. So Allah delays it, not to deny you, but to prepare you. Because if He gave it to you too early, it might overwhelm you, it might break you, it might even pull you away from Him. So instead, He builds you first, quietly, slowly, in ways you don't even notice. And while you think nothing is happening, everything is being arranged, inside you, around you, beyond you. And there is another mistake, very subtle, but very dangerous. Sometimes we treat dua like a transaction. I asked, so I should receive. I prayed, so it should happen. I waited, so now it's my turn. But dua is not a transaction. It is not a deal. It is not a contract. Dua is surrender. It is saying, Ya Allah, I trust you. Even if the answer is different, even if the timing is different, even if the outcome is different. Because true trust is not trusting Allah when things go your way. It is trusting Him when they don't. And that is where faith becomes real. Not when you receive, but when you wait. Not when things are clear, but when they are confusing. Not when it is easy, but when it is heavy. And maybe that is exactly where you are right now. Not abandoned, not ignored, but being shaped, being strengthened, being brought closer in a way that only this test could do. And understand this, dua is not just asking. Dua is worship. Dua is returning. Dua is belonging. And worship is not about results. It is about closeness. It is about standing in front of Allah and saying, I need you, even if nothing changes, even if everything stays the same. Because the moment you raise your hands, you are not empty. You are being seen. You are being heard. You are being responded to, even if you don't understand how. Sometimes, the purpose of your dua is not to change your situation, but to change you, to soften your heart, to bring you back, to remind you where your strength really comes from. Because if Allah gave you everything instantly, you might forget Him. You might stop turning back. You might lose that connection that you only feel when you need Him the most. So sometimes He delays, not to punish you, but to pull you closer. And in that waiting, you are growing. Even if you don't feel it, even if it looks like nothing is happening, something is happening. Inside you, around you, beyond what you can see. And this is where most people give up. Right before things begin to change, right before the wisdom becomes clear, right before the doors open, they stop making dua. They stop believing. They walk away, thinking it didn't work. But what if that was the moment you were closest? What if the silence you hated was where Allah was working the most? You are not ignored. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are being guided, even now, even here. So don't stop making dua, not because you're guaranteed to get everything you want, but because every time you raise your hands, you are closer to Allah than you were before. And that is never wasted. Not one tear, not one prayer, not one moment of sincerity. So the next time you feel like nothing is happening, remember this: you were heard. You were answered, just not always in the way you expected. But not everything meant for you looks like what you asked for. And one day, you will understand why. You will look back and see the wisdom in every delay, every silence, every no. And you won't say, "My du'as were ignored." You will say, "Allah knew better." You will say, "Allah protected me." Because one day you will stand in front of Allah and see everything. Every delay, every protection, every unseen answer. And in that moment, you will realize nothing was random, nothing was wasted, nothing was ignored. It was all written with a wisdom you simply could not see yet. So keep asking, keep trusting, keep returning, because nothing you ever asked Allah for was wasted.